My boyfriend took my money and moved in with another woman. I was just 10 years old when I walked into something I'll never forget. I had no idea what I was about to see. I was just looking for my mom, but what I found shattered everything. There she was, with her boyfriend doing things that I thought only happened in movies. It wasn't just that I walked in on them. It was the feeling of being replaced. It wasn't like I hadn't noticed the distance before, but seeing it right there in front of me, in that moment, was a punch to the gut. I had always been the one who mattered to her, the one she spent time with. But in that moment, I realized she had someone else now. Someone who came first. And I wasn't enough anymore. I wasn't her everything. I felt it in my bones as soon as I saw them. I wanted to run away, to hide, but I stood there frozen, unable to process the hurt. I had always been her priority, but now, someone else had taken my place, and I didn't know how to handle it. That was the beginning of everything falling apart. When I saw that, it didn't hit me immediately. It was like a delayed reaction. First, I felt confused. Then came the rush of hurt. Why wasn't I enough for her? Why wasn't I the one she chose? I felt this deep emptiness, like a hole had opened up inside me. She wasn't just a mother anymore. She was someone else's. And that someone else wasn't me. It was him. The man who had slowly crept into her life and taken all her attention. I stood there, my heart pounding, my mind racing. Why am I not enough? That question haunted me, echoing in my head. I wanted to scream, to throw something, but I was just a kid. I didn't know how to express what I felt. I didn't even know if I could. It didn't seem like I was allowed to feel this way. She was my mom after all, but in that moment, everything changed. The person I loved more than anyone in the world wasn't there for me anymore. I wasn't her priority, and that felt worse than anything I could have imagined. After that moment, I couldn't stop thinking about what I saw. I replayed the scene over and over in my head, trying to understand what it meant. I remember thinking that maybe it was just a phase. Maybe she'd snap out of it, realize what was happening, and things would go back to normal. But they didn't. She wasn't there like she used to be. I needed her, but she was too busy with him. I started to notice more and more moments when she wasn't paying attention to me, when she'd brush me off with a quick excuse. I tried to reach out, but it felt like my mom wasn't the same person anymore. She was different, and I was scared. I started wondering if she even saw me anymore, if she loved me like she did before. I didn't know how to process that. I didn't know how to handle the feeling of being invisible to the one person who was supposed to always see me. The more I thought about it, the more I realized she had made her choice, and I wasn't it. It's hard to admit, but I didn't know how to feel. Part of me wanted to hate her for what she was doing, for choosing him, but another part of me didn't want to lose her. I loved her. I couldn't just turn that off. But she wasn't there, and every time I tried to get close, she pulled away. It felt like she was slipping through my fingers, and I couldn't do anything about it. I hated the feeling of being second. I hated the feeling that she no longer needed me. But I didn't want to lose her, so I kept pretending that I was fine, pretending that everything was okay. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. I kept asking myself, why did she choose him over me? Does she love me less? And I didn't know how to answer those questions. I couldn't process it. I didn't understand. And it hurt more than I ever thought something could. That moment was just the beginning. It wasn't just one instance, it was a slow, painful realization that the most important person in my life had chosen someone else over me. Every day after that, I felt a little more invisible, a little more alone. At first, I told myself it was just a phase, that maybe my mom was just caught up in a new relationship, and things would go back to normal. But as time passed, I started noticing how she acted when I needed her. She wasn't there the way she used to be. When I asked her to help me with something, she'd give me excuses. She was too tired, or she had plans with him, and every time she said no, every time she wasn't there for me, it felt like another nail in the coffin of our relationship. I started feeling like I didn't matter, like I wasn't even part of her world anymore. It wasn't just the physical distance, it was the emotional distance. She wasn't the same person I had grown up with. I remember trying to talk to her, trying to make her understand what I was feeling, but it was like talking to a stranger. She didn't see me anymore. She didn't hear me. I didn't know how to process it. I didn't know how to deal with the fact that my mom had chosen someone else over me. I was angry. I was hurt. But I also just wanted her back. I wanted the mom I used to have, the one who would sit with me and listen to me, the one who would make me feel like I mattered. But I didn't know if that mom was ever coming back. I couldn't figure out how to feel. I wanted to be angry, but I didn't know if I had a right to be. After all, she was my mom. But I also felt betrayed. It wasn't just the fact that she was spending so much time with him. It was the way she seemed to forget me. I didn't know if I was imagining it or if I was just being dramatic, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she was choosing him over me. I hated him, and it wasn't even his fault. He didn't ask for this, but I resented him for taking her away from me. I didn't want to feel this way. I didn't want to hate anyone, especially not my mom. But I couldn't help it. She was the one who made the choice. She was the one who made me feel like I wasn't enough. And it wasn't just about him. It was about her. It was about how she stopped being there for me. She had always been my world, but now my world was falling apart. I didn't know how to make her see me again, how to make her realize what she was doing. I didn't know how to fix it. Before all of this, it was just me and her. I was her world, and she was mine. I didn't need anything or anyone else. My mom was my safe place, my rock. She was always there when I needed her. We'd talk for hours. She'd comfort me when I was scared, and she was the person I could turn to for everything. I never had to question her love for me. I knew without a doubt that I was her priority, and that's why the shift was so painful. One day, it just all changed, and I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know how to process the idea that the person I loved more than anyone else could choose someone else over me. But that's exactly what happened, and it hurt in ways I didn't know were possible. We had something special. I never questioned it. I always felt loved, safe, and cherished. She was my constant. I knew that no matter what happened in my life, she would always be there for me. I was her priority, and she was mine. We didn't need anyone else. It was just the two of us. And that bond, I thought that would last forever. But once he came into the picture, everything started to change. She started pulling away, and it wasn't just physical distance. It was emotional distance. It was the little things at first. The way she would get distracted when I talked to her. The way she stopped making time for me. The way she started prioritizing him over everything else. I noticed it all, and even though I tried to deny it, deep down I knew what was happening, and it hurt more than anything else. I wasn't her everything anymore. He was. The first sign was small, but I couldn't ignore it. She was always on the phone with him, always making plans with him, but never with me. I didn't want to admit it at first, but I started noticing that when I needed her, she wasn't there. She'd cancel our plans for the smallest of reasons, or say she was busy when I just needed to talk to her. And the worst part was that when I asked if we could spend time together, she'd get frustrated with me. "I'm tired," she'd say. "I have other things to do." And I felt it deep inside. The realization that she didn't need me the way she used to. I didn't want to confront her about it. I didn't want to be the child who complained. But inside, I was breaking. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, that I wasn't enough for her anymore. There were so many times I wanted to say something. I wanted to scream. "Why are you choosing him over me? Why are you treating me like I don't matter?" But I didn't. I kept it all inside, hoping that, if I didn't say anything, maybe things would go back to normal. But they didn't. Every time I tried to talk to her, it felt like I wasn't being heard. And the more I kept quiet, the more I realized she was slipping further away. She wasn't the same. She didn't make time for me anymore. She wasn't the mom I knew, the one who would listen to everything I had to say. I wanted to speak up, but I didn't know how. I didn't know how to tell her that I needed her, that I couldn't handle feeling like I wasn't important to her anymore. So I stayed silent, and it hurt more than anything. I tried to ignore it at first. I thought maybe it was a phase. Maybe I was just overthinking things. But deep down, I knew I wasn't. It wasn't just one thing. It wasn't just a random day where she was busy. It was every day. Slowly, I started to realize that something was wrong. I wasn't the priority anymore. She had him, and I was just there. At first, I tried to convince myself that it didn't matter. Maybe I was just being dramatic. After all, she was happy, right? And if she was happy, shouldn't I be happy for her? But that wasn't it. I couldn't be happy because I wasn't happy. I was losing my mom, and I didn't know how to deal with it. Every time I needed her, she wasn't there. It was like she was too distracted, too caught up in him to even notice me anymore. I couldn't understand it. I had always been the one who mattered to her, but now she had someone else. And no matter how much I tried to convince myself that it wasn't a big deal, I couldn't stop feeling like I was losing her. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that I wasn't imagining things. She was pulling away. It wasn't just a matter of being busy, it was that she had chosen him. And every time she made that choice, I felt smaller. I started questioning everything. Why wasn't I enough? Why did she prefer him to me? I didn't know if I was just being selfish or if this was something real. It didn't feel like just a bad phase, it felt like she was making a conscious decision. And that hurt more than anything. Every time she turned to him instead of me, every time she said, "I'll do that tomorrow," it felt like a rejection. A small one, maybe, but it added up over time. I wasn't imagining it. I wasn't overreacting. My mom had made a choice, and I wasn't the one she chose. I started noticing more and more signs that she wasn't there for me. She wasn't picking up on the little things I needed when I asked for help with something. She'd brush me off. When I tried to talk to her about my day, she'd look distracted, always glancing at her phone, always thinking about him. It hurt more than I thought it would. She wasn't emotionally available anymore. I could feel the shift, even if she didn't see it. Every time she chose him, it was like I was getting further and further away from the mom I once knew. And the worst part was, I didn't know how to make her see it. I didn't know how to get her back. It was like she was slipping through my fingers, and no matter what I did, I couldn't stop it. It wasn't just the physical absence, it was the emotional distance. She wasn't there when I needed her most, and that felt worse than anything. It wasn't sudden. It wasn't one big moment that made me realize I couldn't trust her anymore. It was the slow, gradual change in how she treated me. Little by little, the mom I had known, the one who always made me feel safe and loved, started to disappear. She wasn't there when I needed her, and that hurt more than I could put into words. I tried to hold on, tried to convince myself that it would get better, but it didn't. The more I reached out, the further she pulled away. I didn't know how to process it. I didn't know how to live with the fact that the person who had always been there for me wasn't anymore. She wasn't the same person, and every time she chose him over me, it felt like my world was falling apart. I couldn't trust her anymore, not like I used to, and that realization hit me harder than anything else. She started lying. At first, I didn't want to believe it. I tried to convince myself that maybe I was imagining things, but the more I paid attention, the more I saw the lies. She'd make excuses saying she was busy or that she had work to do, but I knew the truth. She wasn't busy. She was with him. She was choosing him over me, and she didn't even try to hide it. It wasn't just the small lies. It was the way she acted when I asked her questions. She'd get defensive, like I was accusing her of something. "I'm not lying," she'd say. "You're just being dramatic." But deep down I knew she wasn't being honest with me, and every time she lied, it made the distance between us feel even bigger. It hurt. It hurt because I had always trusted her, but now, every time she lied, I felt like a fool for ever believing her. And that was the worst part, the feeling of being betrayed by someone I loved so much. The worst part wasn't just the lies, it was the way she made me feel like I was the one who was wrong. She started gaslighting me. Every time I tried to talk to her about what was happening, she'd make me feel like I was the crazy one. "You're overreacting," she'd say. "You're imagining things." And it messed with my head. It made me question my own feelings, my own reality. She would twist things around, and instead of owning up to what was happening, she made me feel like it was all my fault, like I was the one who was making things difficult. I began to doubt myself. Was I overreacting? Was I being unreasonable? But deep down, I knew that what was happening wasn't right. I knew that I was being pushed aside, ignored, and forgotten. And the more she tried to convince me that it was all in my head, the more it hurt. Because I wasn't imagining it. I wasn't being dramatic. She was choosing him over me. And that was the painful truth I couldn't ignore anymore. It wasn't just physical distance, it was emotional. I stopped talking to her about my day, stopped asking for her help, because it felt like she didn't care anymore. The more she chose him, the less I mattered, and it killed me inside. I didn't want to feel this way. I didn't want to resent her, but I couldn't help it. She wasn't the person I knew anymore. She wasn't the mom who always made me feel safe, and it was becoming harder and harder to even want to reach out to her. The emotional gap between us kept getting wider. I didn't know how to bridge it. I didn't know how to fix what was broken. So, I started shutting down. I stopped expecting anything from her, because I knew I wouldn't get it. She had chosen him, and I wasn't part of her world anymore. It was painful, and it was hard to accept. But the more I tried to fight it, the more I realized that there was no turning back. I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't keep pretending like everything was fine when inside, I was falling apart. So I confronted her. I had to ask the question that had been burning in my chest for so long. "Why don't you love me anymore? Why do you always choose him over me?" Her face dropped. She didn't expect it, and I didn't know if she was ready to hear it. But I couldn't hold it in anymore. I was tired of pretending that everything was okay when it wasn't. I was tired of feeling like I didn't matter. It wasn't the conversation I thought it would be. I thought maybe she would try to explain herself, maybe apologize. But it didn't happen that way. She just looked at me like I was the one who had made the problem. And I felt this deep, crushing pain, because I realized then that she didn't see it. She didn't see how much she was hurting me. And then, the words came. "I chose him." She said it so plainly. She didn't apologize. She didn't try to make it better. She just admitted it. And in that moment, it felt like my world crumbled. I wasn't just a kid feeling neglected. I wasn't just being overdramatic. She had chosen him, and that hurt more than I can ever explain. It wasn't just about her spending time with him. It wasn't just about her not being there. It was that she had made a choice that I wasn't part of, and I felt like she had ripped my heart out and didn't even care. It wasn't the apology I had hoped for. It wasn't the explanation I needed. It was the harsh truth. She had chosen him, and I didn't know how to move forward from that. I didn't know how to rebuild the trust that had been broken. The trust I had in her shattered in that moment. It wasn't just that she wasn't there for me anymore. It was that she had actively chosen him over me. And that wasn't something I could fix. That wasn't something I could overlook. I tried to tell myself that it wasn't her fault, that she had the right to be happy, but deep down, I knew she had chosen him, and it hurt. It hurt in a way that nothing else had, and I couldn't ignore it. I couldn't pretend it didn't matter. I didn't know who she was anymore. She wasn't the mom I had always known. She wasn't the mom who made me feel safe. She was someone else, and that person didn't see me, didn't care, and that was something I couldn't change. Everything inside me felt like it was falling apart. Anger, sadness, betrayal. I was consumed by it. I was so mad at her, so hurt, but also confused. I didn't know if I should be angry or if I should just feel sorry for her. I didn't know if I should be mad at him or if I should just accept that this was how things were now, but all I could feel was this deep, gnawing pain in my chest. I didn't know how to process it. I didn't know how to move forward when everything felt like it was collapsing around me. I just wanted my mom back, but she was gone, and I didn't know if I would ever get her back. After everything came out, after she admitted she had chosen him, I thought maybe I'd feel some sense of relief. But I didn't. I felt empty. It was like this weight that I couldn't lift, this feeling of being less than, of not mattering. I tried to go back to normal, to find comfort in the routine, but it was like trying to put a broken puzzle together. There were pieces missing, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't fill that hole. Every time I saw her, I felt like something was missing. I would look at her, hoping to see some trace of the woman I once knew, but all I saw was someone different. It wasn't the mom I trusted with my heart. It wasn't the mom who always made me feel safe. She was there physically, but emotionally, she was distant. She was in a world where I didn't exist. I started pulling away from her too. What was the point of trying? What was the point of holding on to someone who had already made her choice? It hurt more than I can put into words, but I stopped expecting anything from her. I stopped needing her, and in some ways, I think that hurt the most. I didn't want to shut her out, but it felt like I had no other choice. The emotional fallout was real, and it was devastating. As the days passed, I started to feel guilty. I began questioning myself. Maybe if I had tried harder, maybe if I hadn't been so angry, so distant, she would have seen me. Maybe if I hadn't pulled away, she wouldn't have needed him so much. I kept thinking about how much I wanted to blame her for everything, but I couldn't stop blaming myself too. It was like I kept playing over every moment in my mind, wondering if I could have done something differently to keep her attention, to keep her love. Could I have been better? Was I not enough? Was I too demanding? I couldn't stop these thoughts from consuming me, and it made everything worse. I wasn't just mad at her. I was mad at myself. I felt like I had failed to keep her love, failed to keep our bond strong. Maybe if I hadn't been so needy, so upset, she would have noticed me more. But that's the thing about betrayal, it doesn't just make you angry at the person who hurt you. It makes you question everything about yourself. I felt like I had failed her, and in turn, I felt like I had failed myself. The emotional fallout from that day didn't go away quickly. It lingered. I spent so many days, nights, trying to get back to some kind of normal. But it was hard to find normal when everything felt so wrong. I kept waiting for her to come back to me, to pick me over him, but it didn't happen. The hole she left inside me wasn't something I could fill with anything. I started to realize that maybe I had to learn to live with it. Maybe I had to accept that things had changed, and that I couldn't keep waiting for her to change back. She wasn't going to. She had made her choice, and I had to accept that. It wasn't just about her choosing him, it was about everything she had stopped giving me. Her attention, her care, her love. All those things that I used to take for granted were gone, and in their place, I had to figure out who I was without them. Who was I if I wasn't the most important person in her life? What was left of me when I didn't even matter enough to make her choose me? I didn't want to confront the consequences, but I had to. There was no ignoring the fact that things weren't the same anymore. She wasn't the same, and I wasn't the same either. I had spent so many years depending on her love and attention, and now I had to learn to live without it. I had to learn to be strong for myself because I couldn't rely on her anymore. That's a hard thing to face as a kid, but it's even harder when the one person you've always relied on stops being there for you. The consequences weren't just about losing her love, it was about losing who I thought I was. I had wrapped my whole identity around being her child, around being the one who mattered to her. But now, I had to figure out who I was without that. It wasn't easy, and it still isn't. But I'm slowly learning that I can't let her choices define who I am. I have to find my own way. I have to move forward. I tried to move forward, but it wasn't easy. Every time I thought I was making progress, I'd see her with him, or I'd remember the way she used to be, and it would hurt. all over again. But I started to realize that the only way I could heal was to stop holding onto the past. I had to let go of the idea that things could go back to how they were. I reached out to other people, friends, family, anyone who could give me the support I needed. I didn't want to be alone in this, but I also didn't want to rely on my mom anymore. She had made it clear that she wasn't going to be there for me the way I needed, and I had to accept that. But even though I tried, moving forward wasn't something that happened overnight. It took time. It took a lot of self-reflection, and it took learning to trust myself again. I had to let go of the anger and the pain and focus on rebuilding my life in a way that didn't revolve around her. Eventually, I learned that acceptance wasn't about forgetting. It wasn't about pretending nothing happened. It was about acknowledging the pain and letting it go. I had to accept that my mom had made her choice and that I couldn't change it. But that didn't mean I had to keep holding on to the hurt. I realized that healing was a process. It wasn't about getting over it in a week, or a month, or even a year. It was about understanding that things had changed and that I had to move on. I had to accept that my mom wasn't the same person anymore, and I wasn't the same person either. But that didn't mean we couldn't still have a relationship, even if it was different. I had to let go of the expectation that things would return to what they were, and instead focus on who we both were now. Letting go didn't mean I didn't care. It meant I was learning to care for myself first. It meant I was finally taking control of my life, instead of waiting for someone else to do it for me. And that was the hardest, but most important step I could take. Looking back, I see how much I've changed. I've learned so much about myself through all of this. I learned that love isn't always unconditional. That sometimes people you trust can hurt you, and that doesn't make them bad people, it just means they're human. I learned that people have the right to choose who they want to be with, but that doesn't mean it won't hurt when you're the one left behind. I also learned that I'm stronger than I thought I was. It took a long time to get here, but I've realized that I don't need her approval to feel good about myself. I've learned that I'm worthy of love and attention, not because of anyone else's choices, but because of who I am. Healing isn't linear. It's not a straight path. There are days when I still feel like I've been abandoned, but those days are fewer now. I've started to rebuild my trust in people, but it's different. I don't expect anyone to be perfect, but I do expect honesty. I expect respect. And most importantly, I expect to be treated the way I deserve. I've started building relationships that are healthy. Relationships that are based on mutual respect and love. I've learned to let go of toxic expectations and embrace the fact that not everyone will stay. But that doesn't mean I'm less worthy of love. It took a lot of time, a lot of patience, and a lot of tears. But I'm finally in a place where I feel like I've grown. And while it doesn't erase the past, it helps me move forward with strength and grace. I don't have all the answers, but I've learned to trust myself. And that's a big step. The biggest lesson I learned from all of this is that trust can be broken, but it doesn't have to define you. I trusted my mom more than anything, and when she let me down, it hurt. But I learned that I have to be the one to rebuild my trust in myself first. It's not easy, and I won't lie, it's still a struggle sometimes. But I know now that I am in control of my emotions and my actions. I can't let someone else's choices dictate how I see myself. Trust is fragile, and it takes time to rebuild. But the most important thing I've learned is that trust starts with yourself. You have to trust that you'll be okay, no matter what happens. And you have to trust that you deserve better than what you were given. If you're going through something similar, if you've been hurt by someone you loved, someone who chose someone else over you, know that you're not alone. It's painful, and it's heartbreaking, but it doesn't define who you are. You're still worthy of love, of respect, and of happiness. The lesson here is not about what someone else did to you, it's about how you rise after the fall. It's about rebuilding yourself, learning from the pain, and understanding that you have the strength to move forward. Reflect on your own journey. Think about how far you've come. It may not be easy, and it may take longer than you expect, but you will get there. And when you do, you'll realize that you are so much stronger than you ever thought. If you've been through something like this, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. Let's keep this conversation going. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. We're all in this together.